All right, how are we doing, Big Chonis? Looks like we're finally going live here for Bitcoin Live. I want to thank everyone for joining us here on Tuesday, August 28th. I'm joined by my good buddy, Big Chonis. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Cheds, how's it going tonight, my friend?
Pretty good, pretty good. Like heat waves coming in or something. So it was
Whew, it's been warm today, hasn't it? It's for sure.
yeah, makes it kind of uncomfortable. So we're gonna do a Q&A session here for Bitcoin Live. If you guys want to check out my man here, he's on Twitter at Big Chonis. He puts out some really great content, and I know he does a mentoring as well. So if you're looking for that, he's does a good job. So where do you want to get started? Do you want to kind of do an overview on Bitcoin? We just had a weekly chart close recently. Do you want to kind of start there, or did you have something else in mind?
Uh, yeah, if you wanted me to start first, or since we have your screen up, do you want us to start with what you
Yeah.
got?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of just do like a real broad overview, and then we can kind of go from there. I think we probably both agree that the weekly chart on Bitcoin looks the best out of like the major coins. Would you say?
Well, it clearly is leading the pack. I mean, we've seen such a deflation, if you will, of all the money. See, during this move, we were trying to see is there's new money coming into crypto, or is this just money currently in crypto
Hmm.
that is pulling out of whatever altcoins you would have left and just putting that into Bitcoin. And that's why we've seen a lot of the Bitcoin dominance rise pretty strongly over the past several weeks. Over 50% now of the market is just
Mm.
based on Bitcoin valuation here. So
Hmm.
it's good to see that. In the past couple of days, it's been very encouraging to see our volume increasing ever so slightly. You know, our bull volume increasing ever so slightly, leading to this very nice trickle up here.
Hmm.
And listen, this is as bullish as we've been all the month of August. We had
Hmm.
kind of a
Hmm.
very, as a trader, almost a very frustrating month when we have
Mm.
these candles we had earlier in the month represented by very long wicks. So we had very volatile intraday moves.
Yeah.
And, as a trader, we definitely like that. We like volatility. It gives us opportunity to basically stack our trades either way. But at least the past couple days, at least this week, we've had a lot more stability with more
Hmm.
longer, broader candles. And that has
Mm.
led to us slowly trickling up higher here. But we kind of closed our day out very bullishly. I mean, you have the daily chart up there. It clearly shows we closed outside of our Bollinger for the second day in a row. Now, normally I
Mm.
talk about how we don't like to get too overbought in our Bollingers. We use those as our guidelines to tell us if we're overbought or oversold. We do see previously back in the end of July, there around 23rd, when we busted out bullishly our last time of out of our upper BB. It was only just one day where we actually ended up being outside before the next day, exactly right there. We had that kind of tweezer top and came right back in. And it
Hmm.
basically held that upper resistance ever since until these past couple days there. So I would say it's notable that we're outside of the standard deviation, having closed twice
Hmm.
outside our Bollingers. However, we are pretty tight. And considering how
Yep.
wide the BBs are, this can bullish this over bullishness could potentially continue. That's because of
Hmm.
how tight the Bollingers still are, relatively speaking. Now, I
Hmm.
would like to see some sort of a correction here to basically reestablish some supports so we can
Okay.
build a stronger base and then move actually higher. But for
Hmm.
now, we have to acknowledge that we just closed with a very nice green candle. And if we can have this Kambalu continue, we could definitely see this going higher just because now that the BBs have tightened, this has been leading into our next move here. Now,
Hmm.
even though we had a very nice close to the day, there are perils that lie ahead, if you will, with strong resistance lying ahead that we're kind of eyeing right now.
So, pardon me. So would that be this area here, basically? I mean,
Well,
this
I
is.
would look to correspond to see what was our previous area of major price support and resistance.
Mhm.
And clearly, what you highlighted there, that I'd even go as low as 6250, kind of to the bottom wick there, and and then as
6250
high
or
as kind of
72?
Sorry,
72.
I'm sorry, 72.50. I don't want to get that bearish, do I? know? But yeah, perfect right there, about 72.20. And then, yeah, I mean, I think 76 is kind of stretching it there. But yeah, somewhere in that 72 to $7,300 area, which would correspond to that last area where we had some chop in the price action. And that area is significant because it took us some time to get through that on the way up. Coming down, when we actually bearishly broke through it with resolve and conviction, we did have a kind of a chance to try and do a back test there with that wick out, those two wicks we had there. Yeah, right there, perfect. And that actually led to more bearishness. So because we were failure of that area to break through, that clearly shows that right where we are right now, give or take 50, $100, is a very strong resistance area. And that's why we've been stopped out currently. And that's why this will be a very hard area to break through if we intend to go higher.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting chart. There's so much, pardon, we could talk about. And I think you bring up some great points. Clearly, we're running into an area of traffic here, Big Chonis. Once again, that's Big Chonis on Twitter, at Big Chonis. What's interesting to me, so we have, I didn't mean to move that. So we have the 834 EMA cross here. Okay, so this is the green line, the 8 EMA crossing the yellow line. Last time that happened was right here. So we had like almost a $2,000 move. So that would be a bull sign. However, maybe it does need to chill out for a bit because we are, approaching important resistance. Because clearly, as you pointed out, the low of the day on July 21st, that was key support that the bulls wanted to see hold. And you had some hope of that with these lower shadows here in these days prior to this bear break. But the bear break was significant. We did have a retest and a confirmation of resistance, Big Chonis, as you pointed out right there. So that's interesting. The moving average cross, the EMA cross is interesting. And these candlesticks, Big Chonis, on the bottom. So I see a whole series. I'm going to remove all these lines. I see a whole series of inverted hammers. Right? How many inverted hammers do you see? I mean, I see a bunch, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 inverted hammers. So that's some bullish candlestick action. And this one right here had the most volume behind it on August 22nd. So as a clear signal, when we broke this high, that's pretty bullish. So this is the level we're going to want to watch. Pardon me, you're going to want to watch on a retest, on a back test, potentially of that exponential moving average support and this breakout level. So I think we kind of got to want to keep an eye on that. You have any further thoughts, or did you want to show us something in Bitcoin, or do you want to maybe move on to something else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that, and I have my own EMAs that I follow, not too dissimilar from yours, and I'm seeing very similar things that, where we're beginning to cross bullishly on a lot of our indicators.
Let's
where
take a
for
look.
so much of August we were breaking through so many of our bearish indicators, and this is actually a very encouraging sign here. Now I got my daily chart up here as well, and I have my BBs as well, and I use a little different EMAs. Again, Cheds likes to talk about every trader needs to find their own style that they're used to, they're comfortable with, and they like to trade with. So Cheds has his style, I have my style, I have my EMAs, he has his EMAs. And this is just based on just what we've been accustomed to, used to experience, and also what we feel has been rather accurate in terms of our charting. So I like to use our EMA 12 and 26 as my shorter term and longer term indicators. I like to watch how they dance with each other. And then I like to use my EMA 55 as kind of my last resort resistance or last resort support. So I was actually encouraged several days ago, actually, on this candle here, that for the first time, we were actually to be able to close above our EMA 12, and then the next candle we were actually to confirm that back-to-back closes above was very bullish for me, because I kind of see this as every step along the way. So, we hit this as resistance for a while, then we hit our middle Bollinger resistance as a while, then we're able to break both of them, retest both of them, and actually close above both of them. And then I go to my next one. So now we're finding support on my 26 for 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row. So it's like we go one level at a time here. And now, as I mentioned, my EMA 55, which is kind of my last area I want to either attempt to break through or break through, Sure enough, our big wick out we had several days ago got
Mhm.
stopped out right there, and now yesterday's candle closed using our EMA 55 as support. So wow, we
Mhm.
have 2 days in a row now
Mhm.
that we have closed over my EMA support. So this is very bullish to me. However, I like to see retest of areas that are resistant. So I'm very comfortable with my EMA 12 and my EMA 26. Notice how they're right there. They're almost
Mhm.
crossing, but I'm
Mhm.
waiting for this confirmation
Well, let me
as
ask
we
you.
like to when trading. What's that?
I mean, what's more important for you, the fact that you're able to close above your 55 EMA, or that you're having
Hmm.
that MA cross?
Well, so it's a great question because normally I would say the close above the 55 is really great.
Mhm.
My only caveat to that is all this sideways action brought our indicators very close together. So
Mm.
the achievement of 67 to
Mhm.
68.47,
Right.
it doesn't, even though for me personally, I'm liking that, we're just not that far apart now. So
Mm.
I use these as a little bit of a step by step. And granted, it's taken us all of August, Chats, to get through these
Mm.
6,000s crawling up. I
Mhm.
don't know the last time we've had, I mean, I guess this inverse head and shoulder area we had back in the past was another example of
Mm.
a very tight, more or less, price action for quite a while.
Mhm.
Once again, we've done it through the sixes again, but I'm worried. I'm worried we're getting a little too ahead of our skis. Okay.
Why?
I'm
Why?
worried that this volume, it doesn't feel like it's where I want it to be coming in. And I
Mhm.
only want to bring
Mhm.
it up because the last time we broke bullish like this, these are our big candlesticks we got here and here, right?
Mhm.
And now we're getting littler candlesticks here and
I mean,
here.
okay,
So
we don't have breakout candles. I mean, we have a trend. We have a
trend.
trend, but no breakout.
That's what we have. We have a nice trend, a very nice trend. It's trickle up, it's
Mhm.
good. And because our EMAs have been sideways for so long, we
Mhm.
actually have very good support under us now.
Yeah, we
All
should.
this was so resistance. Now we're getting good support.
Yep.
So this is definitely leaning short term bullish just because
Mhm.
of where our EMAs have now become support where they used to be strong resistance.
Well, what do you think that the prior neckline that we broke out on the inverse head and shoulders, that's now support, right? Or is it kind of it's been invalidated? Maybe it
Good
still should be
point. That's
support, you know?
Yeah, I mean that 6,800 area, we danced with that for all of July and into August. We know it
Mhm.
was support, it was support, it was
Yep.
resistance. We wanted to hold it and go higher.
Yeah.
And when that baby broke, the
Isn't
bulls were
that significant?
disillusioned.
Doesn't that look pretty significant? Now that you draw that line, right?
Hmm.
Rejected what, 6 times at the head and the shoulders, right? And you
Yep.
finally break it right shoulder, and you come back, fail to hold it as support, find support at the base of the right shoulder, now
Yep.
re-break that line. I mean,
It's
that's good.
important. And also what was kind of important too is we
Mhm.
put in a higher low here. I mean, you don't even have to use the wicks. You can use the bodies. And for the
Yeah.
first time in our whole correction of Bitcoin, we've actually put, well, not the first time. You could argue that this was a wick and this was our higher low. But once again, we have a low, and now in our correction, we're putting in a higher low.
Well, let's go
So we're
weekly. Look, show me weekly, because that will kind of flesh out this noise, right?
Yes, and for the weekly, I also want to bring in our RSI because I think that might actually have
Okay.
some little more relevance to what we're looking at here. So here's our weekly, and
Okay.
I'm in log scale. And again, we've got our EMAs very tight here, very tight here. Now, what's our resistance? Well, now
Mm.
we're finding resistance
Mhm.
of our 55 EMA. So our daily
Mhm.
shows support, our weekly shows resistance. But you see, we were debating if this is some sort of a nice bottom hammer.
It is.
Clearly, it has been,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Clearly,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
played out.
Mhm.
Correct. I guess this could be a spinning top doji, and
Yep.
which is a
Spinning top and not a
50-50.
doji, just spinning top.
Right, not a doji, but a spinning top, and it broke bullish. So this was our bullish push
Yeah,
there.
and you
Remember,
closed above the high. Well, actually, we're still into this week, so this week's just a day old. So it's really just the
yeah, we're
last
not
two
too
candles.
far into this guy here, but this is something to keep an eye on here
Yep.
because this will be very important for follow through. Right
Yep.
now, again, let's bring up our volume. Okay, again, this week I don't care about it. We just started it, not enough to tell, but we did put in lower volume last week than the
Yep.
previous week, than the previous week. So we're going 3 weeks in a row where we're putting in declining not bare volume, just volume. I'll keep it at volume. Now let's look at our RSI here because this is something that we talk about. A bullish market, we like to be over 50, okay? And a bearish market, we basically are under 50, which we don't like to be. That's important. So right now, you see how that 50, 52 area there you know, that's been acting as resistance. We found support on a higher low, which is good. We bottomed here at 40. Now we bottomed here at 43. But we're range bound here. We're definitely range
It's like a
bound.
triangle, though. Is it kind of a triangle a little bit?
Are we putting in some sort of a symmetric triangle here?
Yeah, a little bit, right? It's not,
or even just
roughly.
kind of like a wedge, right? A very tight
it's a
wedge building there.
Yeah, I mean, it's close. You could argue rising wedge. You could argue almost a symmetrical triangle.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. We have our areas of support, so we're putting in lower highs, which is bad, but we're putting in higher lows, which is
that's
good.
classic consolidation. It's in that equilibrium where you have the lower highs, higher lows.
We're seeing that play out in the price action. Now, lastly, let's bring up our stochastic here.
Okay.
A couple things here on a weekly chart. You know, big picture, looking at this from 50,000-foot view. We have our bearish cross still in our red, but our blue, which is our leading indicator and the one to turn quicker, is actually piercing up bullishly here. So we got a nice little bullish cross, and we also have a higher low on our reset and a higher high actually on where we topped off here. So we're trickling higher with a little bit of momentum, but we are still under 50 there. We like to keep above 50. So those are positive things. And the last thing here, our MACD has been bearish all through the year. We were almost broke out bullishly in July, but we got rejected. And look at that. How do you get any closer than touching right there? Fingertip to fingertip. So this is the week where if we have this bullish follow through, we could see our MACD cross bullish for the first time in 2018, and that could be significant.
Yeah, I mean, especially on this time frame.
Yep.
If you're looking for a broader trend, like you're not day trading off a MACD weekly cross. Right.
But also notice on our weekly, we haven't hit our middle Bollinger yet at 7,300, which is interesting. And on our monthly, just to get crazy here, we actually found very good support on our middle Bollinger. What a bounce we had when we touched it. So this month of August, tested it for the very first time, which is notable.
What are the lows? Compare the lows from 2 candles ago. What's the low of that candle? Right there.
So 57.74, and 6,072, and now 58.80. So we have a higher low from the previous month.
And then 2 months ago, the higher low than 2 months ago, right?
Yep. I will note the width of our monthly Bollingers is insanely broad. It's like Jaws mouth still.
Well, hey,
and even our weekly.
Hold that up. We'll go back to real quick. What percentage of like crypto Twitter and like crypto got in right here? Right?
This here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think these candles here was like 70% of current crypto Twitter, maybe.
Yes.
And then this was all your OGs kind of.
I know, right? Just like 1 year old is OG.
Listen, this is the young, even though it's 10 years old, this is the young market. But you see what happened last time our Bollingers went spread out bullishly when we had our 2014. And now you see where we are at now. So this is relatively speaking, I see this as several months, of longer consolidation when we can tighten these bad Larrys up, and begin to go something bigger. Because the last time tight, and see how much I have to squeeze out here to get these to even show. This is our sign here for our next parabolic move. So we got to get a lot tighter, historically speaking, before we can really talk about a big change and turnaround. So I'm optimistic about this candle here. Several more days to go in the monthly, and definitely our weekly has started off very good as well. But we have a long way to go on our weekly, not much conjecture. The only thing I want to keep an eye on is, can we break this lower volume cycle? I don't want to put in a lower week. I want to match at least our previous week's volume. We have to acknowledge this is our last week of August. People are still on vacation. I'll acknowledge that. Coming into September, though, I'd like to see some more money flow volatility that might be expected, and that might be a positive thing to bring that kind of trading opportunities, back to Bitcoin.
That's a great point. I think, and I think that's some really good analysis as well. Just kind of get a little big picture view, my friend. Let's go ahead and answer some of these questions. I'm going to switch back the view here. We'll just leave this, and let's go ahead and answer some of the questions from the chat room. I am going to pull up, see if you can read that. And if not, that may not be working. Here we
There you
go.
go. Yeah, I see.
Okay, so here's the first question, and why don't you read it while I prepare the next question, my friend?
Hey Cheds and hey Cheds and Big Chonis. I'd like to ask if you believe the bounce in BTC and select alts is simply a retracement upwards during this bear market, or the potential start of an uptrend. Could we be seeing something similar to the bounce we experienced in April? Do you believe we need to make a lower low towards the 5200s for the year before a true trend reversal? Thank you for your time. That's a great question.
Okay,
Do you want to start or should I?
why don't you get started?
All right. So the question here really is when we have a move, a parabolic move, a big parabolic move, what happens every time, at least in my experience, we've seen that happen. And a lot of it has to do with a retrace of areas that kind of brought us the beginning of that move. And Chad, if you can zoom out a little bit more in time there,
Let's
so we can
see.
kind of see our VPVR to kind of show where a lot of our historic money, there we go, that's good, comes from. And if you can close your watch list there, we'll do a big picture there. Beautiful. So now what I'm showing here and why this is significant to me is even though crypto, our experience has been, at least, you know, a lot of people's experience has been Bitcoin $1,000, $2,000 and above. A lot of history was created sub $1,000. A lot of the money, the original money, was put in sub $1,000. And when we have a parabolic move like we have had in crypto here, and I will also note our 2014 fractal, which had a very similar unwinding as we're experiencing, we need to test lower areas in the chart to convince the market and to convince the bulls that the worst is over. That don't worry about retesting lower lows, the worst is over and we're going higher. And I don't feel we've done that until we at least test the 5,000 area and potentially a lot lower. So I'm encouraged a little bit of this move here, but nothing will convince me that we're out of this bear market until we at least get above 8,500, which would be our first target. That would allow us to put in the first higher low for the very first time. And then from there, 10,000, 11,500, and so on. Those would be our first steps in necessity to confirm the end of our bear market. However, our lower targets seem much more applicable and much more, I feel, easier to obtain. Now, there's this battle going on between the exchanges and the miners desperately trying to support the 6,000 area because for them, there's a break-even point somewhere in that area, and the exchanges put a lot of money into these markets. They need the fees to keep their revenue flowing. So it's everybody's best interest to keep above 6K. But the retail investor has just gotten slaughtered these past few months, either by shorting or going heavy into alts at the wrong time, or just not taking prudent profits along the way. And right now it's kind of whales versus whales, you know, kind of the big boys are playing, moving quick movements, big tether movements, news driven events because of our low volume, relatively speaking. And right now the market's kind of at the mercy of these whale on whale going at it, you know, big money players flexing their muscles, trying to move the market here. I'm encouraged short term by this movement, but I am in no way convinced that this is anything of a trend change by any means. And as I established, those are the areas I want to break through. And our lower areas, again, it would be healthy for Bitcoin long term for us to reset and retest lower areas, confirm them as stronger supports. And I feel then and only then can we move higher into a newer bull market.
I think it's very valid. I think it's definitely valid, but I would counter argue. I don't see why it's more bullish to break the higher low pattern that we've started to develop, and then like retest the lower support. Like, wouldn't it be more bullish to hold this set of higher lows we're starting to put in? Right? Like, wouldn't it be more bullish to put in a double bottom here and to kind of continue up, retest support, back test, and keep going? Isn't that more bullish than? You know, I don't think we need to go to 5,200. I don't think we need to go to the 5,000s. Doesn't mean we won't, and it doesn't mean if we go there it's bad, because we have plenty of support. You have the lows from November. You have the highs from September, just in the short term, really. Big Chonis. But I don't necessarily. I don't think we necessarily need to go any lower. If you can just start putting in higher lows and break the lower high pattern, you're off to the races, right?
You have to ask yourself, unlike a stock where a stock tends to trend with earnings, right, with announcements, stuff like that, and with faith,
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes stocks go up. Bitcoin doesn't have quarterly earnings. It just has faith in the market, and the market sets the price. So yes, we've been so used to a Bitcoin in the thousands of dollars, right? 6,000, 8,000, 10,000. But why is that the value of the market? And if I'm a whale, if I'm a rich guy and I have a lot of money that I want to put into Bitcoin, but I'm not paying $7,000 for Bitcoin, I want to pay like $3,000 for Bitcoin. I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be patient and I'm going to wait. And then I'm going to load up when I feel Bitcoin is at a more reasonable price, reasonable valuation. And unfortunately, I feel that is at a much lower price of Bitcoin. Now, news events are driving this market, a positive ETF event, stuff like that, Wall Street adoption, stuff like that. These are things that can definitely help the market along. But from a charting standpoint, based on these moves I've seen before and just how they unwind to find true areas of market stability and value, I feel it's better to go lower to then go longer term higher. And I'll just end with I am very bullish on Bitcoin long term. I'm very bullish on crypto and blockchain long term because I believe in the technology. I think it's a wonderful thing. And once these companies can figure out the better use cases for this technology, it's just going to explode in a very positive way and be much influential on our everyday use and a great way to trade and make some great profits.
I love it. I love it. That was a great answer to that question from somebody whose name I can't pronounce, Mo Gracia. We just have this one more last question, but it's a bunch of questions in one. So we'll just kind of chew through these here. Dear Ched, dear Chonis, thanks for the session. Do you think the altcoin strength will continue in the next few days, or would you already start to scale out? That's an interesting question. I'll just answer that briefly. I think it really depends on each chart. Like some of these really nice ones that have had 3 or 4 green days in a row that have made a 20-30% move off bottom. I think you want to be scaling out for sure. But I think it really will depend on the pattern. If you see a clear bearish signal, and you're playing off of a 6-hour or daily time frame, that's what you want to do. Whatever you want to stick to. So it really depends on them. Some of them I think are setting up. There's a bunch that I think are setting up as well. So I think even if Bitcoin goes sideways for a while, I think the altcoins can still run for a little bit here. What do you think, Big Chonis? I think we lost Big Chonis. That's okay.
No, Chad, sorry about that, buddy.
Hey.
I'm here, buddy. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's a great question, Gary, because we like to see. So it was so frustrating to see when we were coming down in the beginning of August and to see so many altcoin charts look very bullish and actually have some bullish divergence into Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin price was falling. And so the USD comparison of the alt was falling. So even though the chart was bullish, if Bitcoin goes bearish, then these are things that you have to factor in. Now we only tend to see the alts tend to run when we actually have when we actually have some sideways to bullish Bitcoin price action. That's exactly what we have going on right now. We have a situation here where Bitcoin is sideways to bullish, and because of that, we having our alts allowed to kind of flex their muscles there and go into test some other areas here. Now, it's important to note that if Bitcoin stalls out, if Bitcoin is unable to break, this area, give or take $100 or so, you are going to see a pullback in alts because they tend to be the first ones to where a lot of that money gets sucked out of. So the alts continue to be a very good trade if you can catch a bullish move with sideways price action in Bitcoin, because then you'll get seemingly more bang for your buck, and we definitely see better percentage wins in specific alts, even when Bitcoin moves. But pick your poison there. Sometimes a bearish chart, you gotta watch the money flow. You don't want to be stuck in a chart that is looking good but doesn't have a lot of volume. So alts, you gotta pick your battles there. Higher risk, but sometimes higher reward.
That's a wonderful answer. I pretty much agree with almost everything you said. There's a question on what our opinions are. Our opinion of these three ZRX, Key, and Aeon. Let's do that at the end briefly. So let's see. What strategy would you recommend for someone who is rather a beginner level in terms of, it says there's been a lot of profits made on altcoins lately. For a beginner level, I'd recommend you paper trade until you're comfortable. I'd recommend you start to look for certain types of setups. And if you think, start to study charts, and if you think you see a nice bottom setup or a pattern, try to match the patterns that are in the guides I've put together in Bitcoin Live, the bullish and bearish pattern signal guides. Try to match a pattern. Paper trade your entry. I bought at this price, see what it does, scale in your entry. Just, practice before you put money into play if you're a beginner. That's something I recommend doing. Do you have any thoughts on kind of the beginner approach here, Big Chonis?
Yeah, I agree with all that. The only thing I would add to that is it's okay to dip your toe in. Don't feel you have to make crazy money on your very first trade. A couple percent here and there can add up. It's okay to make a plan, and also have a plan. Don't buy if you don't know when you plan to sell. Okay, I see a lot of people just taking a position and then seeing how it goes. And that's not a way to do it, because you'll get shooken out with a quick wick bearish on a short time frame if your overall plan was not set in place. So you got to be smart and have a goal, a realistic goal to achieve when you buy something, because it's all about trading. Trading is buying low and selling high. Okay, you can't just buy without having a plan as to when you're going to sell it and take your profit and then wait for your next setup. Patience is key.
I love it. That's really good advice. So the next question we kind of already answered in terms of what patterns. I'd recommend reading the full series I put together, an 8-part series on bullish and bearish signals. I would use that. How do I define targets for altcoin runs? It depends on the setup, Big Chonis. I'll just see if I have one I can pull up as an example. But if you're using a particular candlestick pattern or Western analysis, like a triangle or flag, for example, like a bull flag, you can take the length of the flag and use that to project out, a potential profit target. I'm going to see, here we go. So this says bearish, but you can, sorry about that. Let me try this again. How about this? So you see, here's your target. You kind of take the length, you take the height of the flagpole. So you can kind of do that. Same with the head and shoulders breakout. We had that recent head and shoulders bullish on Bitcoin. So you were able to take the length of the head to the shoulder and project out once it broke the neckline. Head to the neckline. Once it broke that neckline, you could project out, how far. It was like $1,100. It came pretty close to it. So, I mean, that's generally how you can define your target. You can also look at where you see resistance. So Big Chonis and I talked about, for example, let's just minimize this, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's running. This is an area, I'll move this other line up. We talked about it has a whole bunch of resistance it's going to be running into, even lower, sorry. Right here. And like right here, right? We talked about, so this is an area, a target might be, this area, because you expect it to potentially slow down. It's an area of high supply where people are looking to sell. So that would be kind of my opinion on that. Let's pull that back up. When would you take profits? What do you think, Big Chonis? When would you take profits on altcoins?
Listen, this is an answer that each person has to answer in their own way. You have to understand what your goals are, okay? And you have to understand what your bankroll truly is. Is this money that you can afford to play with? This money you need at the end of the month for rent or for bills? So once you determine that, then it's basically, important. And that if you determine that I mean, again, it's to each his own. You can ladder your cells, you can ladder your cells. And I recommend, once you take an entry, start to ladder where you're taking your exits. As long as you can take profits along the way, you're not going to get, destroyed. So that's important when you factor in where you want to take profits.
I think it's beautiful. So just to finish up here, Gary's asking us quickly our thoughts on ZRX, Key, and AION. We can just do that. Did you want to pull it up, or should I do them here?
Why don't you rock it out?
So ZRX, we'll just do this quickly here, folks, to get a nice view on it. I'm going to go ZRX daily. So it's still, I'm not seeing a ton of strength yet, Big Chonis. We're seeing potentially a rejection here at the middle Bollinger Band. It is holding an area of support, an important area here, which is the low 10s. So that is positive. I'm just not seeing a ton of strength yet. What are your thoughts on this chart?
Again, I will just refer, I look at all alts more or less the same. Not all alts are created equal. ZRX is definitely an exception, mostly because it was part of the Coinbase. And listen, there's going to be a moment where Coinbase either announces we've added ZRX to our platform, or we're not ready to add it because we've added a different one, ADA or Lumen, which I doubt either one will. Maybe Lumen. But my point on that is that the chart itself is still relatively in play, bullish until it's not. Now we're getting extremely tight here in our BTC ratio price action there, which is encouraging. But I see a couple of things happening here. We break bearish and we put in our lower highs. Literally, if we fail to hold 10,000 Satoshi, that'd be incredibly bearish for me. And we can clearly see how we put in 3 big peaks here in our overall moves here. And our last one was lower than our previous one there. So again, I think because it's part of the Coinbase group, it has an extra incentive for it to be moderately more bullish and at least a better play determination in terms of how it can play out. But it can go both ways. A bullish news rejection or a bullish addition to Coinbase could have a similar lead up to what we experienced with ETC.
Right.
But the opposite could happen as well if it was rejected or at least not acknowledged.
It's a great call. To be added. It's a great call, man. I think we got to watch that. It's kind of a 3 Buddha or a head and shoulders top too, with the the middle peak being the highest. Key, KEY, BTC looks like it's a new addition to Binance. Bollingers are getting tight, showing a little bit more strength. We're able to hold the middle Bollinger here, Big Chonis. You see how we were rejected previously in July and then middle August. Right, so that's a little bit of early strength here. I think this is looking a little bit better, but it's pretty early. But I'd say this looks okay. What do you think?
Again, I like the movement. The daily, the stochastic is just been way up and then up again. Very bullish, right? And the OBV is definitely encouraging there. So there's definitely been some loading here, and it's tight. You can clearly see the Bollingers are tight. The chart is tight. When did this come in? July. It's a new coin though. I mean, this just came in July. Right. These ones are very tricky because they always experience market price discovery. After they initially come on the market here. So yeah. I mean, again, and it just falls in the overall altcoin.
Well, look
high
at the
risk,
profile.
high reward.
Look at the volume profile. It's pretty good, right? Considering where the price is.
Right? It's decent, and I like the fact that we have a nice base of support in this area here. So it's not a bad trade. Just know that you're buying into it where the stoke is way, way up there. I'd rather buy into a resetting stoke than a toppy stoke.
Yeah. I mean, because right there you have that doji yesterday. So that shows a little bit of that bull momentum slowing down. So now you kind of want to watch and see what happens. But I would be cautiously optimistic. And the last one was AION, requested by our friend Gary AION. Creeping up there. You know, the 8 was trying to cross the 34 here, Big Chonis, but it looks like it's flattening out. So this run here might be slowing down. I mean, there are some hints that this bounce is losing steam. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks very similar to the last one almost, where Stoke has been up here for several days. Several days. Now we have precedent back in July, and once again we're kind of retesting a similar double hump, right?
Yeah.
Almost Eve and Adam there or something.
Even if a double, yeah. Well, this would be
Well, the first
double Eve.
one, and then the second one though is more of an Adam and Eve.
Oh, Adam and Steve. Adam and
Adam
Eve.
But I do like the fact that we are holding support there over your indicators there, and you know we found resistance once again on our upper Bollinger. You know it's crazy to buy into that. You know don't buy over the upper Bollinger. You know that's why these wicks out, wicks out, wicks out. Maybe we come back and retest our middle BB support and push higher. It's possible.
I love it. I love that analysis. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. You can find my good friend on Twitter at Big Chonis. You can of course find me on Twitter at Big Cheds. Until then, stay safe. We promise to come back and do another one of these shows for you guys soon. In the meantime, stay safe and take care, everybody. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Chonis.
All right, buddy.